So a little bit different here today. We're going to go ahead and test OBD2 readers. Now these are the budget options, so around $100 MSRP and below. And we'll see if they can do all 10 modes and what other features they do have. So we'll go ahead and get these unboxed and plugged in and we'll take a closer look. Now the Lekulu here, 4 buttons. Pretty simple setup. So you hit exit, you have language, units, contrast. Now it is black and white. And then to scan, you hit enter, which would be okay here. Showing that we do have a code found. We can read codes. There's that P0155 for the O2 sensor. We can erase, freeze frame, missions readiness, and vehicle information. So you can do very little here with this actual reader. Basically read and erase codes, and that's going to be about it here. And there is no updates available for this as well. Plus you don't have that generic DTC list either on this tool. All right, so I have the motor power here. Basically we have a really simple setup here, 6 buttons and a black and white screen. OBD, live graphing, DTC lookup, so if you wanted more information on the code, and then your settings. Under OBD, it's going to connect. You can read out codes, erase codes, view freeze frame data, emissions check, vehicle information, data stream, and then real-time data as well. Live data. Pretty straightforward, really basic graph here. Then you have your DTC lookup. Basically, you would just come in here and enter a code, and it's going to give you a generic, basic description of that code. Nothing real fancy. So basic tool, no software updates on this one. So here we have the E-Diag. Now this does have a colored screen with 4 buttons. You have diagnostic, DTC lookup, voltage test on this one, options, so stuff like language, and of course about. If we go to diagnostic, then we can read codes. So here we have stored, pending codes, and permanent codes. So we have no codes, pending codes. We have that O2 sensor code, which we've seen when the vehicle was running with the other tester, and permanent codes. We can erase codes, we can look at live data, freeze frame. So this is where if we had a DTC, it would show us what was happening during that DTC. Vehicle information, emissions readiness, mode 6, O2 sensor test and component tests, DTC lookup. So it has a generic list, and then of course list by manufacturer. So pretty straightforward there. Then you have voltage test, just a simple test there. Ancel here, black and white, 4 button. Status information, read codes, erase codes, live data. So you can view the items or view the graph. See if we can do RPM. Did select RPM there. Here we're in kilometers per hour. So do we have to click the one above? Looks like it. There we go. Now we have RPM. So that's one thing that's definitely interesting to note on this one. But you can graph things like RPM here. And look up DTC. So just generic information. Freeze frame, missions readiness, vehicle information, This actually has evap leak test in it. So if you're looking for that, this may be the option there. And that's it. Now, it does have updates available, but it's a basic unit. Now the Blacktech 400, really basic, black and white screen, 2 buttons. And you can see we have the code displayed here as permanent, and it gives us an indication that, yeah, it's probably not going to pass emissions with this code up. Here you can click to erase, and you have DTC, which we have a DTC present. So very basic information. The screen is not the greatest. If you do pull up the app, it will give you more generic information on the code other than just the code number. And it is USB-C here, updatable, but I would probably stay away from this one. I'll launch here, colored screen. You do have 8 actual buttons here. Diagnostics, emission test, data review, code lookup, print, help, setup, and information. We'll go under diagnose. So we can read codes. So we do have that DTC and generic information there. We could erase. We're going to leave that for now. So the emissions readiness. The LED in the corner here might look orange on camera, but that is red, that we do have a permanent fault right now, so this would not pass. So we can view data. Let's see what the graph looks like. So it's interesting here. You select what you want. So RPM, we'll hit OK. It's selected. Then we got to hit that back button, and then we can graph it. Definitely a lot nicer graph here compared to the other tools. We got that freeze frame data, O2 sensor, onboard monitor information, evap test, and vehicle information. So if you recorded any data, you can go back in here to review it. Look up DTC. Pretty much the same thing it's going to show on the code page. So you do have O2 sensor test and evap test here. Nice screen, easy to use, easy to navigate, and good graphing. And it is also updatable. Foxwell with 9 buttons. So you have diagnostics, DTC lookup, review, print, about, and setup. So we'll go into diagnostics here. So read codes, there's the code and the generic data. See, it's a permanent code. So you can erase live data here as well. Let's take a look at this. Custom data set. Freeze frame, emissions, onboard monitoring, component test, vehicle information, modules present, and units of measurement. Let's go back. Component test. So we can do a evap leak test and our DTC lookup. You can select by manufacturer. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Updates available. So top down. So diagnostics, battery test, emissions, view data, look up DTC, print, set up help and information there. Read codes, shows us the active code. Erase, data stream. Let's go ahead and graph. Pretty much the same concept here as the launch. O2 sensor test, same deal. Onboard monitoring, evap, and vehicle information. Now this one's interesting for battery testing. It actually comes with this additional cable, which you would plug in on the end. That way you can go ahead and just do a simple battery test where it's going to, well, monitor voltage basically. And it's also updatable via this micro USB port. So Blacktech 420, similar to 400, but here we have the colored screen and 5 buttons there instead of 2. We can look at live data. So we can look at the stored code, pending code, and permanent code. We can also view the freeze frame data for the code. Hitting that back button there, and there's the freeze frame data of when the code happened. And that's about it. Tool is updatable USB-C. We can go ahead and erase here as well. Hit the red. Yes, we're sure. Now the Zurich ZR4S is quite similar to that 400, but you're missing the center button here. And you're also gaining access to see ABS codes. But other than that, it's pretty much the same tool, just with that extra feature there. Blacktech 440, now 9 buttons. Again, we have that monitor information up here and our error code with the definition, system status. So we can check ABS here. Which again, just like the Zurich, unable to connect. So we do have freeze frame. This does have service reset, so we're changing the oil. And it's just talking about the process of actually going through the reset on the vehicle menu. So it's not actually resetting it from here, which that's kind of a shame. It's more so doing it, you know, through the car terminal there. So DTC library. Information on the codes depending on manufacturer. Drive cycle procedures. So this would be all the stuff again on that front screen that's incomplete, where you would go ahead and start the vehicle, drive the vehicle, and see if the test would come out fine or faulty. And it does have a small little graph there to graph the data. Updates are also available. So this looks pretty much the same here as the 440. So we're not going to go through everything again, seeing it's pretty much the same tool. Zurich here, yeah, it's the same thing as well. So Blacktech 440, Inno 5210, and the Zurich ZR8S. What is my overall takeaway? Yes, the Blacktech 400 is cheap, but I found it hard to use. Black and white screen. There are very little features. Yeah, it is Bluetooth. You do have the app, but the app pretty much doesn't do much more than, yeah, it gives you the description of the code. Features-wise, I'd probably spend the extra money and not buy this. Same thing here with the Lekulu. Yeah, it reads codes. You can erase codes. That's pretty much it. Blacktech 420, still on the line there. I probably wouldn't go with this. Yes, it does a little bit more. It does have a colored screen. You can look at some live data, but still I think it's quite basic and I would spend a little more. And it has a MSRP price tag of $40. Same thing pretty much here with this Zurich ZR4S, but I will say if you need something to read ABS codes, this is going to be the bottom dollar one to do that. Coming in at $45. I think it's definitely a good option for that. E-Diag, decent features, colored screen. Biggest drawback to this, it won't graph data. So if you're looking to graph, this is not going to be the best option, but it is decently priced MSRP wise at $32. Best budget MSRP wise to me is this Moto Power, coming in at $27. It is black and white, but you can graph data with this. Same thing with the Ancel. Just MSRP is a little high here at $50, so I think there's definitely some better alternatives, but it did decent for what it is. So now the Zurich, Innova, and Blacktech here, yeah, you see they're pretty much all the same tool. And MSRP wise, it's the same deal. One thing I will say though, the Zurich is actually made in Taiwan, so definitely something to consider there. For the $90 price tag, I think we have better options here. And I found navigating this tool not very user-friendly with this style of button layout. It was kind of confusing at times. Well, do I hit this back button or do I hit one of these other buttons here? It's not very straightforward. Foxwell also coming in here at $90, but the biggest drawback to this is there's no graphing. Other than that, I found it easy to use. You do have the help there for troubleshooting. It'll give you a little more information on things maybe you can check to resolve the problem. So I do think it's something definitely to consider here. Now at the top end, I found the top-down and the launch to have the majority of the features versus the rest. And the top-down also does battery testing, which is basically a voltage test, but it's something to point out there. Top-down MSRP-wise is $80 versus the launch here at $56. Now both have pretty much the same interface. Again, the top-down does have that battery test feature, which, yeah, may be good for some, but I think price-wise, 56 versus 80, I think 56 here wins out. Now, I did put all the data together. So again, most of these are rated on what modes they can do. So here is the overall list by MSRP of what modes each one of these tools will do. And then when we look at some of those additional features like graphing live data, O2 sensor test, emissions testing, which they all do to some extent, battery and or alternator testing, oil counter reset, ABS code read and clear, data recording, and if they are Bluetooth with an app. So to round it up, again, if you need to read ABS codes, your cheapest alternative is going to be this small Zurich here. On the cheap end, I'd go with this Moto Power. At the high end, the top down. But overall, I was quite impressed with this launch here. Now, I did have plans on testing Bluetooth adapters as well, but the length of this video got quite long, so there will be a part 2 where I take a look at the adapters. So if you're curious about that, stay tuned for that video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video helps. Let us know in the comments below if you have one of these scan tools and how it's worked for you. And I will catch you on the next one.